Hello everyone, this is your English educator. Today we will take up the 11th lesson of English supplementary text. The lesson is named Ancient Education System in India, as you can see in the picture on the slide. So let me take you to the next slide and let's discuss what we have here. See, what are we going to learn in this lesson? There are certain points that I have written. Let's simply discuss. See, did you know that India has been the center of learning since ancient time? Ancient, if I talk about ancient, I'm talking about a time which was, let's say some 400, 500 or even older times. Okay, so how did we come to know about this? There are inscriptions on stone and copper. Inscription refers to writing on particular things like stone as well as copper. Okay, copper, palm leaf, records and our scriptures as evidences of the historic origins of learning in India. So today we follow an educational system in which learning takes place through syllabus, curricula, textbook and assessment. So if we talk about education system today, it's entirely different, right? We have broadly divided or entered a phase in which education is more specifically categorized into certain syllabus, certain tastes are arranged. Let's say for example, CBSE has come up with pattern called term 1, term 2, wherein semester sort of system has come up. But then if we talk about earlier time, it was Gurukul system, wherein students used to stay with their teachers in their ashram and learn. Okay, so this brings us to point to ponder about, means something to think about. So here is a question: have you ever thought what this were like in the past? In this feature story, we'll give you glimpses of our ancient education system. Okay, some important glimpses of ancient education system is what will be discussed. So without any further delay, let's begin the lesson. Here we go. See class, you can see there are two pictures here, wonderfully encrypted, picture number 1 and picture number 2 from the lesson 11th of English supplementary text. Like I mentioned in the beginning, our education in the past. Okay, so in pic 1, as you can see, there is a sage named Panini. Panini was a Sanskrit grammarian, one who teaches grammar, who gave a comprehensive and scientific theory of phonetics, phonology and morphology. And you can see picture number 2. This is a picture of Takshashila. It was an ancient city. Alright, India was home to wonderful cities, universities and great sadhus and saints. All this literate person who has literally, who are much more advanced, some people say. So Takshashila is an important archaeological site, I believe you already know, and the UNESCO declared it to be a World Heritage Site in 1980. So these are all sites of great importance for India. Okay, so I've given my brief introduction in the beginning. What do you see in the picture? See, this is supposed to be an ancient Gurukul system wherein there is this ashram. Such a scenic picture, isn't it? Beautiful picture in which students are seated and they are listening to their guru. Okay, so we'll watch this video completely to understand about how education was delivered in the yesteryear. Okay, we all know Swami Vivekananda, this great personality who's changed our life in many ways. Swami Vivekananda has some of the best knowledge for students, teachers or people of any age. So here I've taken up one quote to start the lesson with, so that you all stay motivated and focus in your life. The quote goes like this: education is the manifestation of perfection present already in man. Divinity is the manifestation of religion already in man. Okay, so education, what is education? It is manifestation of perfection. So Swami Vivekananda says that each human being like us are already perfect. All we got to do is manifest it. We are divine. Okay, we also have some sort of divinity within us. What we have to do is manifest that through religion. Okay, this are thoughts of course, the great leader Swami Vivekananda. Moving on, let's start with introduction. Okay, getting back, you must have heard or read that travelers from various regions having different climates and cultures began to visit parts of India from early times. To them, India was a land of wonder. Whenever they visited India, there was this wonderful fragments which attracted them to come to India time and again. The fame of Indian culture, wealth, religions, philosophies, art, architecture, as well as its educational practices had spread far and wide. The educational system of ancient times was regarded as a source for knowledge, traditions and practices that guided and encouraged humanity. Okay, so by reading this introduction, what we can conclude is education system in ancient India was already superior to even if I try and draw a parallel or comparison here, what I can say is education system in the yesteryear was at par or even better than what we are doing now, because we had this wonderful philosophies, art, architecture even before the Western world had developed, but unfortunately we are not able to keep in tandem with the pace now, but then things are gradually changing. Okay, so salient features of ancient education system. What are some of the important features of ancient education system? Let's read this and understand. From the time of Rig Veda onwards, our ancient education system evolved over the period and focused on the holistic development of individual by taking care of both the inner and outer self. Holistic development refers to that kind of development wherein all round development is being focused. But then if we talk about current education system, we are just focusing upon academics mostly, right? But then things are changing, of course. But then generally if you talk about education system, we we came from an era, or the ancient education system broadly focused on holistic development of individual by taking care of both the inner and outer self. It's not only physicality that we are talking about, inner quality or its development is also being focused upon. Okay, the system focused on moral, physical, spiritual and intellectual aspects of life. It emphasized on values such as humility, truthfulness, discipline, self-reliance, believing on one's own self and respect for all creation. Such wonderful values, class, right? Our education system back then had emphasis on such important value that would make any person great. So students were taught to appreciate the balance between human beings and nature. Teaching and learning follow the tenets of Vedas and Upanishads, fulfilling duties towards self, family and society, thus encompassing all aspects of life. Education system focused both on learning and physical development. So in other words, the emphasis was on healthy mind and healthy body. So our education system back then put emphasis not only making us physically strong, but then mentally fit and better to take up various challenges that life throws upon us. Okay, now what we can see is that education in India has a heritage of being pragmatic, achievable and complementary to life. Means education in India was something that would complement life. Okay, that would add values so wonderful that a person would develop personality of the highest order. Okay, unfortunately these things seem to be on the declining side now. Moving on, let's talk about sources of education. Okay, class, can you see this picture over here? This birch bark manuscript of the Rig Veda was found in Kashmir about 150 years ago. It was used to prepare one of the earliest printed texts of Rig Veda as well as an English translation. It is now preserved in a library in Pune, Maharashtra. Okay, so this is a testimony that we were a cultured and civilized society for a long time. So excerpts of this could also be found in class 6 PAS NCERT 2017 heritage, something that is handed down from the past as tradition, tenets. Okay, now the ancient education system was the education of the Vedas, Brahmanas, Upanishads, Dharma Sutras. You must have all heard the name of Aryabhatta, Panini, Katyayana and Patanjali. Patanjali C is supposed to be the father of modern yoga. The writings and medical treatises refers to title of book of Charaka Samiti. Charaka is a wonderful person. He's written so many wonderful chikitsa paddhati, if we put it in Hindi term, so that people benefit from herbal and this traditional healing techniques. And Sashruta were also some of the sources of learning. Distinction was also drawn between Shastras, learned disciplines, and Kavyas, imaginative and creative literature. There was distinction between Shastra and Kavyas. So sources of learning were drawn from various disciplines such as Itihas, history, alright, Anviksiki, logic, Mimamsa, interpretation, Shilpa Shastra, architecture, Artha Shastra, polity, Varta, agriculture, trade, commerce, animal husbandry, and Dhanurvidya, which is archery. Physical education too was an important curricular area, and pupils refers to students participated in Krida. Class Krida refers to games, recreational activities. Vyama Prakara, exercises. Dhanurvidya, archery, for acquiring martial skills, and Yoga Sadhana, training of the mind and the body, among others. The gurus and pupils work conscientiously, means without anybody forcing anyone, together to become proficient in all aspects of life. In order to assess pupils' learning, Shastrartha, means learned debates, were also organized. So see, just reading this few lines puts so much value up in the education system which we had in the yesteryear. Everything was there, you name it, Kavyas and Shastras. Sources of learning were drawn from Itihas, Anviksiki, logic, Mimamsa, interpretation, Shilpa Shastra was there, Artha Shastra was there, polity or economics, Varta was there, agriculture, trade, commerce, animal husbandry, even Dhanurvidya. Other than that, there were games, recreational activities. Then Vyama Prakara, exercise, archery was there. So all in all, Indian education system in the yesteryear was way ahead also. Okay, getting back, pupils at an advanced stage of learning guided younger pupils. There also existed the system of peer learning together. Like you have group of peer work. Ancient education system in India, was both formal and informal. It was indigenous, originating or occurring naturally in a particular place. Okay, so all we can say is ancient education system in India was a way of life. It was a way of life rather than making people read certain syllabus and then taking periodical examination on that particular syllabus, basically academic, is perceived to as something that does not help students in the long run. Okay, so indigenous education was imparted at home, in temples, pathshalas, stalls, chatuspadis and gurukuls. There were people in homes, villages and temples who guided young children in imbibing pious ways of life. Pure ways of life were celebrated. Temples were also centers of learning and took interest in the promotion of knowledge of our ancient system. Students went to viharas and universities for higher knowledge, teaching was largely oral, and students remembered and meditated upon what was taught in the class. See, wonderful system. Of course, writing is important, but oral learning and processing the learning was much more important back then. Okay. So, education and the curriculum comprised the study of ancient scriptures, law, medicine, astronomy, military science, and the 18 Silpas of arts. See, Takshashila, which I mentioned in the beginning, became famous as a place of learning due to its teachers' expertise. Among its noted pupils were the legendary Indian grammarian Panini. Who was Panini? He was an expert in language and grammar and authored one of the greatest works on grammar called Astadhyayi. Okay, Jivaka, one of the most renowned physicians in ancient India, and Chanakya, very famed person, also known as Kautilya, a skilled exponent of statecraft, both studied here. They were students of this wonderful place named Takshashila. Okay. Students came to Takshashila from Kashi, Kosala, Magadha, and also from other countries, in spite of the long and arduous journey they had to undertake. See, now what happens is students from all over the world, not only from India, go to places like Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, in order to get knowledge of the highest degree. But then back then, what happened? People used to come from all over the world to get higher education in Takshashila. This was the beauty of our great nation called Bharat, India. So Takshashila was an ancient Indian city which is now in northwestern Pakistan. It is an important archaeological site, and the UNESCO declared it to be a World Heritage Site in 1980. Its fame rested on the university where Chanakya is said to have composed his Arthashastra. Arthashastra, economics, we can say. So archaeologist Alexander Cunningham discovered its ruins in mid-19th century. Unfortunately, we did not preserve our heritage as well as we should have, and it's a shame, I can say. Moving on. Now we come to role of teacher. Teachers are very important, right? In whichever part of society, whichever era, whichever culture, teachers play exponentially important role here. So we'll discuss what role teachers play in the yesteryear. Now teachers had complete autonomy, power in all aspects, from selection of students to designing their syllabi, plural of syllabus. So when the teacher was satisfied with performance of the students, the course concluded. Wonderful system. That is why there was this Gurukul system, Guru Shishya, such pious relation, they used to share. But then now what happens is there is this particular syllabus, teacher teaches, students understand, and then there is this written examination which is the deciding point of everything. Back then it was not simply academics which used to decide students' future. Okay, it was much more. So back then what teachers used to do is he would admit as many students as he liked and taught what the students were keen to learn. Nobody was forced to go through let's say a certain course. Debate and discussions were the primary method of teaching, right? Teachers were assisted by their advanced level students. So teachers had their assistants. Advanced level students used to assist the teacher. I've also put one picture here depicting ancient Gurukul system. See, also some students are busy in yajna, animals picture are also seen here. This shows there is this balance, perfect harmony between human beings, nature. Guru is being revered, right? You can see deer, Gau Mata, cow in the background, and then a student offering something to it. Moving on. Now we'll talk about Nalanda University. Before that, can you see these two pictures, Zhuangzang and I King? Let's talk about Nalanda University. So Nalanda, when Zhuangzang visited it, it was called Nala and was a center of higher learning in various subjects. The university attracted scholars from different parts of the country as well as world. The Chinese scholars I King and Xuanzang visited Nalanda in 7th century CE. 7th century, you figure out how old the time was, and we are in 2022 now. Okay, they have given vivid, means very clear accounts of Nalanda. They have noted that as many as 100 discourses, discussion happen on a daily basis in a variety of disciplines through the methods of debate and discussion. Xuanzang himself became a student of Nalanda to study Yoga Shastra. It is mentioned that the Chancellor of Nalanda, Shilabhadra, you have to remember this name, Shilabhadra was the Chancellor of Nalanda when Xuanzang came to study here. Shilabhadra was the highest living authority in yoga. The courses of study offered by Nalanda University covered a wide range, almost the entire circle of knowledge then available was covered by this teacher. Such great students at Nalanda University studied the Vedas and were also trained in fine arts, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, politics and art of warfare. Okay. Moving on. So here you can see an old picture of Nalanda University. See, things were constructed or they existed in as old as 5th century CE. You can see this picture, right? The ancient Nalanda was the center of learning from the 5th century CE to 12th century CE, located in present day Rajgarh, Bihar and India. Nalanda was one of the oldest universities of the world, and UNESCO declared the ruins of Nalanda Mahavihara a World Heritage Site. The new Nalanda University is envisaged as a center of inter-civilizational dialogue. So back then, way back in 5th century CE, we were capable of creating such wonderful structure. India, of course, was a country of great heritage, is what we can say. Now, each community plays some important role in children education, right? So back then, there was this community which played a crucial role. So at that time, knowledge was considered sacred and no fee was charged. Contribution towards education were considered the highest form of donation. All members of the society contributed in some form or other. Financial support came from rich merchants, businessmen, wealthy parents and society. Besides gifts of building, the universities received gift of land. This used to be gift. This form of free education was also prevalent in other ancient universities like Vallavi, Vikramashila, Jagadadala. At the same time, in south of India, Agrahara served as center of learning and teaching. South Indian kingdoms also had other cultural institutions known as Ghatika and Brahmapuri. Now, Ghatika was a center of learning, including a religion, and was small in size. And Agrahara was a bigger institution, a whole settlement of learned Brahmins with its own powers of government, and was maintained by generous donation from the society, temples, mathas, Jain basadis and Buddhist viharas also exist as other sorts of learning during this period. Okay. So class, let's do it this way. Let's wind up today's session here. I'll come up with part 2 of this video wherein the remainder of the lesson will be explained. Thank you everyone for joining in. If you have liked this work, do like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great time.